When someone shows you who they are, don't argue, don't beg, don't fight. Just say the words that silence their ego and honor your spirit. When you're dealing with someone who thrives off control, off twisting your reactions and reshaping the truth, your greatest weapon is not louder words, it's stillness. The kind of stillness that does not seek to win the moment, but instead rises above it. When you speak from stillness, you are no longer performing. You are no longer explaining, defending, or trying to make sense of chaos that was designed to keep you dizzy. Speaking from stillness is the refusal to let your emotions be baited into battle. It is the art of letting your peace speak louder than their performance. Narcissists are not energized by silence. They are enraged by it, because it leaves them with only themselves. The moment you stop reacting, they are forced to deal with the mirror they've spent a lifetime avoiding. But your stillness is not emptiness. It is not indifference. It is deliberate. It is full of truth and self-respect. And when you do choose to speak, every word lands like a stone in still water, unshakable, measured, and final. Imagine them trying to provoke you, raising their voice, twisting your words, rewriting history in real time. And then imagine the power in responding with calm, not conflict. You look them in the eye and say, "I'm not here to perform for your comfort. I exist beyond your approval." That one sentence, said without fire, without fury, shuts down the entire theater of manipulation because it reveals that you no longer need them to see you correctly. You've seen yourself clearly, and that changes everything. When you speak from stillness, you don't argue to be right. You don't fight to be heard. You speak to declare, not to convince, because you understand now that not every ear deserves your truth, and not every soul is ready to receive the clarity you've earned through pain. You no longer see conversation as a battlefield. You see it as a threshold. You either rise into self-respect or sink into ego games. And when you rise, they notice. They might laugh, mock, or try to drag you back into the noise. But your stillness is your boundary. It says, "This is where I end and you begin. And no matter how loud you get, I remain unmoved." Stillness does not mean silence forever. It means you speak with intention. You choose your words like a sculptor chooses where to strike the marble, carefully, purposefully. There is no need for 10 sentences when one will do. There is no need to scream when calmness lands harder. "That's not my truth, and I won't carry your version of it." Let that be your answer when they attempt to twist your reality. You do not have to unravel every lie. You do not have to correct every distortion. You only need to state your truth and let your stillness carry it. There is a maturity and calm, a grace, and they won't understand it because they were never looking for truth. They were looking for fuel, for emotion they could use against you. But when you're still, they run out of material. They run out of ways to shake you, to make you explain yourself, to make you dance in their circus of blame. And the moment you stop performing, they lose control. Stillness speaks even when your mouth is closed. It shows in your body, your breath, your energy. When you don't lean in, don't rush to fix, don't crumble to their accusations, they start to shrink, not because you attacked, but because you didn't engage. You gave them nothing to hold on to, no handle to pull you back into old patterns. You stood firm in who you are, and they saw for the first time that their words no longer had power. It's not about coldness. It's about clarity. It's about deciding that your emotions belong to you, and you won't hand them over to someone who treats your heart like a battlefield. Speaking from stillness means you take a sacred pause before responding. You remember your worth before you choose your words. And you ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer is no. You don't owe chaos a response. You don't owe cruelty a conversation. What you owe yourself is your own presence, your own dignity, your own ability to speak with the strength of someone who has already survived what they're trying to destroy. That kind of power is quiet. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't seek revenge. It just is. So the next time they push, poke, prod, trying to trigger the version of you they can control, don't give them what they expect. Don't rise to the trap. Instead, center yourself, feel your breath, and speak from that rooted, grounded, unshakable place. That is where your power lives, not in fury, not in fear, in stillness, in truth, and in the voice that comes from knowing you no longer need to win because you've already walked away with your soul intact. Clarity is not just a form of communication, it is a weapon of liberation. In the presence of a narcissist, clarity slices through manipulation like a blade through fog. Narcissists thrive in confusion. They create emotional smoke screens, bend reality, and shift blame with such precision that you begin to question your own memory, your own feelings, even your own worth. But the moment you begin to speak with clarity, their control starts to crumble. They can twist emotion, they can exploit silence, but clarity, they can't survive it. It begins with knowing your truth. Not just what happened, but how it felt, what it cost you, what it taught you. And once you know that, you don't need to shout. You don't need to over-explain. You just need to name things clearly and simply. Say, that's not what happened. This is what happened, and I stand by it. And you say it not to change their mind, but to protect your own, because the goal isn't to convince a narcissist. The goal is to no longer be confused by them. Clarity is power because it breaks the spell. Narcissists often rely on word games, circular conversations, and subtle jabs that leave you emotionally off balance. They may say something cruel and then follow it with a joke, making you wonder if you're being too sensitive. They'll rewrite the past and insist that you agreed to things you never did. But when you respond with crystal clear language, you're not just holding them accountable, you're anchoring yourself in reality. That's where your strength comes from. For example, when they deny your experience, you don't need to prove it to them. You don't need to bring out evidence or beg to be believed. All you need to say is, that's not how I remember it, and I trust myself. That one sentence cuts deeper than any argument, because it tells them, I am no longer seeking your version of truth. I have my own, and I believe in it enough to stop explaining it to you. Clarity also means rejecting the invitations they send you to enter their emotional chaos. They might bait you with insults disguised as concern, or try to provoke you into emotional explosions so they can point the finger and say, see, you're the problem. But when you reply with words like, this is not a respectful conversation and I won't continue it, you take the air out of their performance. They can't spin your reaction if you don't give them one. And they can't twist your words if you choose them with precision. Every time you speak with clarity, you are drawing a line in the sand. You are showing that you are no longer available for games, guilt, or gaslighting. You are not here to decode their mixed messages. You are here to tell the truth in full light, and that kind of truth is blinding to someone who lives in shadow. They will try to dim you. They will try to confuse you. But the more you practice clarity, the more you become immune to their tactics. There is a beautiful strength in simple, honest language. It doesn't need to be poetic or dramatic. It just needs to be real. Say things like, I'm not comfortable with the way you're speaking to me. Or, I won't continue a relationship that requires me to betray myself. These are not emotional outbursts. They are boundaries made visible. And once you start speaking this way, something shifts inside of you. You stop needing validation. You stop needing them to finally get it. You begin to understand that their understanding is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to honor your own clarity. And clarity doesn't mean cruelty. You can be calm. You can be kind. but you must be direct. Narcissists feed off ambiguity. They hope you'll be too afraid to name what's happening. But when you say, this isn't love, this is control, it's like turning on a light in a room they wanted to keep dark. They may mock you, they may dismiss you, but deep down they know they've lost their grip. You are not here to be tangled in confusion. You are not here to be twisted into someone else's version of truth. You are here to see clearly, speak clearly, and live clearly. So let your words be clean, let them be few, let them be firm, and never underestimate the quiet power of a sentence that holds no fear. When you use clarity as a sword, you cut yourself free, not to wound the other, but to rescue your own soul. That is not revenge, that is rebirth. There is a silent, heavy burden that many carry into relationships with manipulative people, a burden made of apologies that were never ours to give, apologies for setting boundaries, apologies for speaking up, apologies for needing space, for saying no, for simply existing in our truth. We are taught that politeness is virtue, that self-sacrifice is strength, that being liked matters more than being respected. And so we bow our heads, we soften our voice, and we say sorry, not because we've done wrong, but because we fear being seen as difficult, cold, or unloving. But here's the truth you must rise into. You don't owe anyone an apology for protecting your peace. You don't need to feel guilty for choosing yourself. You are allowed to walk away from what breaks you without leaving an explanation behind. Especially when you are dealing with a narcissist, you must understand. Your apology is their permission. The more you apologize for having boundaries, the more you tell them that you are willing to shrink. And every time you shrink, they grow bolder. A narcissist will make you feel like everything is your fault. They will twist your care into obligation, your silence into weakness, your forgiveness into permission. They will use your kindness against you, turning your empathy into a leash. And the moment you try to reclaim yourself, they'll come for your guilt. You've changed. You're being selfish. After everything I did for you, these are the lines they use to drag you back. And too often we fall for it. We apologize, not because we were wrong, but because we want the tension to stop. We want peace so badly we'll buy it with our dignity. But peace built on self-abandonment is not peace. It's quiet suffering. And you were not born to suffer to keep someone else comfortable. You were not born to be the emotional sponge for someone who refuses to grow. You were not created to absorb blame so others can avoid accountability. At some point, you must look yourself in the mirror and say, I no longer apologize for the space I take up. I no longer apologize for being whole. The turning point is when you realize that your power begins the moment you stop asking for permission to exist. When you stop saying sorry for things that were never wrong. You don't need to apologize for being unavailable to dysfunction. You don't need to explain why you won't respond to manipulation with compliance. There is nothing wrong with you for being tired of walking on eggshells. There is nothing wrong with you for outgrowing toxicity. Growth is not betrayal, it's evolution. When you say, I don't apologize for setting boundaries, I apologize for not setting them sooner, you are reclaiming lost time. You are forgiving yourself for the years spent twisting into shapes that were never meant for you. You are telling your younger self that it's okay to stop performing, to stop begging, to stop pleading with people to treat you like a person. You are telling the world that from now on, your standards will be guarded, not negotiated. It's not easy to unlearn the reflex of apologizing. It's something we often carry from childhood, from past relationships, from a culture that celebrates self-erasure in the name of love. But healing begins when you become aware of every time you say, I'm sorry, and ask yourself, am I apologizing because I've truly harmed someone, or because I'm afraid they'll leave me if I don't? That distinction is everything. A narcissist will never admit they're wrong, but they'll do everything in their power to make you believe you are. That's how they keep control. And when you stop apologizing for things that aren't your fault, they start to lose their grip. They may lash out, they may try to guilt you, shame you, or label you as cold. Let them. Because what they're really saying is this: I can't manipulate you anymore. I can't use your compassion as a weapon. That's not a loss, it's a breakthrough. Stand in your truth. Speak it plainly. Say, I won't apologize for making decisions that protect my well-being. You don't need to justify your healing. You don't need to shrink your joy to soothe someone else's insecurity. You don't need to keep explaining your pain to someone who was the cause of it. Your healing is not a debate. It is a declaration. And the moment you stop apologizing for it, you step into a version of yourself that no one can control. You'll feel it first in your voice, how it no longer trembles when you say no. You'll feel it in your spine, how you sit taller, how you walk away from disrespect without second guessing. You'll feel it in your spirit, how light it becomes when you stop carrying guilt that was never yours. And others will feel it too. They'll sense that something in you has shifted, that the door they used to enter through is no longer open, that your boundaries are no longer soft suggestions, but solid truths. And here's the most powerful part: when you stop apologizing for your strength, for your clarity, for your needs, you give others permission to do the same. You become an example of what it means to love yourself without condition, to walk away without shame, to protect your light without guilt. So let this be the beginning, the end of unnecessary apologies, the beginning of unapologetic self-respect. You do not need to explain your healing to those who harmed you. You do not need to be small to be worthy. You do not need to be perfect to be loved. You only need to be true to yourself, to your voice, and to the life you know you deserve. And once you own that truth, no one can make you give it back. There's a unique kind of power in naming what someone else is trying to hide, especially when that someone is a narcissist, someone who thrives off denial, distortion, and manipulation. They rely on your silence. They count on your fear. They are fueled by your hesitation to call things what they really are. But the moment you start naming what they deny, you pierce the illusion they've built, and everything starts to unravel. Not because you screamed, not because you fought, but because you told the truth and you did it out loud. Narcissists live in a world where their image matters more than integrity, where charm hides control and flattery masks emotional abuse. They rewrite history to suit their narrative. They play the victim when they're called out. They deny, deflect, and gaslight until you begin to doubt your own reality. And for a long time, you might even stay quiet, wondering if maybe you were too sensitive, if maybe you misunderstood, if maybe you're the one who needs fixing. But deep down, something knows the truth. Something aches every time you ignore what's real just to keep the peace. That ache is your soul asking you to speak. Naming what they deny is not about revenge. It's not about confrontation. It's about clarity. It's about standing in the light and saying, this is what happened. This is what you did, and I will not pretend otherwise. You are not being dramatic. You are not being cruel. You are simply refusing to let lies take root in your spirit. Because every time you ignore what you know, you give them more room to manipulate your reality. You might start with something simple but powerful. This isn't love, just that. 3 words that shatter 1,000 illusions. Because narcissists are masters at dressing control in the costume of love. They give just enough affection to keep you hooked, then take it away to keep you desperate. They twist every argument into your fault, make every wound seem like something you asked for. And if you stay long enough, you begin to accept the dysfunction as devotion. But when you say, this isn't love, you wake yourself up. You remind your heart that love isn't supposed to hurt this way. That love doesn't punish. Love doesn't silence. Love doesn't ask you to disappear to keep someone else comfortable. And when you say it out loud to them, to yourself, to someone you trust, you begin the process of reclaiming your reality. Naming what they deny also means speaking truth to manipulation. They may say things like, "You're imagining things," or "I never said that," or "You're too emotional." Those are tools of confusion, but you respond with truth. "No, I remember what was said, and I'm allowed to feel what I feel." You take back your narrative one clear sentence at a time. It doesn't always have to be a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it's a quiet declaration said with a steady voice. "You're not being honest," or "You're using guilt to control me," or "You're avoiding accountability." These are words they don't expect because they assume you'll stay tangled in self-doubt. But when you begin to name things, the fog starts to clear. And once it clears, you begin to see them as they are, not who they pretended to be. This is not easy. It takes courage to name what others deny, because you know it may trigger backlash. You know they may lash out, double down, or even try to punish you for speaking truth. But your healing is more important than their comfort. Your clarity is more sacred than their approval. You don't name things to get a reaction. You name them to set yourself free. And it's not just about naming what they did, it's about naming what you deserve. I deserve honesty. I deserve to feel safe. I deserve relationships that don't require me to shrink. These are declarations that rewire your self-worth, because once you speak them, they begin to shape your decisions. You stop tolerating what once felt normal. You stop excusing what once felt necessary. And you start building a life that reflects your truth. When you name what they deny, you send a message. I see you clearly now, and I choose me. You refuse to be gaslit. You refuse to be silenced. You refuse to be a character in someone else's fiction. And that choice, no matter how quiet, no matter how private, is revolutionary because it breaks the cycle. Even if they never admit it, even if they never apologize, even if they keep spinning stories and painting you as the villain, none of it can touch you once you've named the truth and stood in it. Because from that point on, you are no longer seeking their validation. You are no longer begging to be understood. You understand yourself. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are not making it up. You saw what you saw. You felt what you felt. And the moment you said it out loud, you stepped back into your power. Naming what they deny is not weakness. It's not disrespect. It is self-respect in its purest form. And once you find the strength to do that, they will never be able to hold your truth hostage again. There comes a moment in your life when you realize your peace, your energy, your spirit, they are not common, they are sacred. And when you've spent enough time around people who drain you, control you, or diminish you, you start to see just how rare and powerful your inner light truly is. That's when you must begin the work of protecting your power like sacred ground, because once you understand the value of your essence, you stop giving it away so freely. Too often, we are taught to give and give, to prove our love through self-abandonment, to keep the peace by breaking ourselves into pieces. We are told to forgive everything, tolerate anything, and carry the emotional weight that others refuse to hold. But that's not strength. That's slow destruction. And somewhere inside you, a voice begins to whisper, "No more." You don't owe access to anyone who cannot honor your presence. You don't need to explain why you are no longer available for chaos. You don't need to feel guilty for pulling back, for going silent, for disappearing when someone refuses to meet you with the same respect you offer them. Your peace is not up for negotiation. Your joy is not a bargaining chip. Your boundaries are not invitations to argue. When you start to protect your power, you may be misunderstood. People who once benefited from your lack of boundaries will call you selfish. They will call you cold. But you must remember, protecting your energy is not cruelty, it's clarity. You are not being mean, you are being mindful. You are saying, this space inside me, it is holy, and I will no longer allow it to be trampled by carelessness. Think about how much you've overcome. Think about the years it took to rebuild yourself after being broken. That healing didn't come easy. You crawled your way out of emotional manipulation, self-doubt, and spiritual exhaustion. You found your voice again. You found your rhythm. And now that you've fought so hard to reclaim your light, how dare you let anyone dim it for their comfort? Protecting your power means knowing when to say no without guilt. It means leaving conversations that only exist to drain you. It means walking away from relationships that require you to forget who you are. There is no apology necessary for choosing your well-being. In fact, it is one of the greatest forms of self-respect you will ever offer yourself. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to respond to every insult with explanation. Silence is power. Walking away is power. Saying, this is not for me, is power. And the people who truly love you, who truly see you, will not demand that you sacrifice your sanity just to stay close. They will understand that your light cannot burn bright for them if it's burning you alive in the process. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is remove yourself without fanfare, without warning, without drama, not as punishment, but as preservation. There is a stillness in that kind of power, a quiet knowing that says, I am worth more than this. And when you carry that energy, others can feel it. They realize they cannot play with you the way they used to. They realize that your softness has been tempered with wisdom. Protecting your power doesn't mean you never give. It means you give with discernment. You give from fullness, not depletion. You love deeply, but not blindly. You are kind, but not a doormat. You forgive, but you don't forget the lesson, because now you understand your time, your mind, your soul, they are temples. Not everyone gets to enter. So when someone tries to make you question yourself, when they try to guilt you for standing firm, when they call you hard for no longer bending, remember this: boundaries are not walls to keep love out. They are doors that decide who gets to stay. And the version of you that honors her power, that protects her peace, that walks away when necessary, that version is sacred. You were never meant to be consumed. You were meant to be respected. You were never meant to carry the weight of everyone's brokenness. You were meant to protect your light so it could guide you forward. And every time you choose to honor that, every time you say, not this time, not today, or simply walk away without saying a word, you are doing the sacred work of protecting your power. And there is no higher act of love than that. There comes a time when you must decide that closure isn't something you wait for. It's something you create, especially with people who thrive on keeping the door open just enough to return, to manipulate, to pull you back into a cycle of confusion. Narcissists rarely let things end clean. They leave trails of unfinished conversations, lingering promises, unanswered messages designed to make you chase clarity. But your freedom doesn't require their permission. It requires your decision. And when you decide to walk, you must do so with final words, not open doors. Open doors are emotional traps. They keep you in a constant loop of what ifs, and maybe they'll change. They feed the part of you that's still seeking validation, still hoping to be seen, still longing for resolution. But the truth is, narcissists don't want resolution. They want access. As long as that door is cracked, they'll find a way to come back, sometimes with charm, sometimes with rage, sometimes with silence that lures you in through guilt. But no matter the method, the goal is always control. And that's why the door must close fully, finally, and with clarity. Your final words are not for them. They are for you. They are the declaration that your story continues without the weight of unfinished business. It's saying, this chapter is closed. I do not need another conversation, another apology, or another excuse. When you speak those words, you reclaim your narrative. You stop waiting for someone else to end the cycle and realize you've had the power to do it all along. And final doesn't have to mean dramatic. It doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes the most powerful closure comes in quiet resolve, a calm message that says, I no longer wish to continue this relationship. Please respect my space, or even just silence, because some people don't deserve the privilege of a response. What matters is that you say it with conviction, that you mean it, that you don't reopen the door because loneliness knocked or nostalgia whispered sweet lies. You see, open doors keep your healing hostage. Every time you check back in, every time you respond, every time you let them pull you into just one more talk, you're watering a weed and expecting a flower. The patterns repeat, the pain resurfaces, and slowly you begin to question the progress you made. You forget how far you've come. You return to survival mode, tiptoeing around someone who was never gentle with your heart in the first place. To walk with final words is to walk with your dignity intact. It's to say, I will not re-explain what you refuse to hear. I will not renegotiate what I've already decided. I choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over your approval. It is the ultimate act of self-love, to choose yourself completely, even when someone else demands access to the parts of you they helped shatter. There will be moments when the door feels tempting, when their absence feels louder than their presence ever did, when you wonder if maybe this time will be different. That's when you remind yourself of the truth, not the fantasy. You remember the nights you cried trying to decode their silence. You remember the gaslighting, the emotional exhaustion, the lies dressed up as care. You remember who you had to become just to survive them. And then you remember that you don't live in survival anymore. You live in strength now, in stillness, in certainty. And certainty means the door stays closed, not because you hate them, but because you love yourself more. You're no longer holding space for someone who wouldn't hold space for your soul. You're no longer mistaking attention for affection, control for care, manipulation for love. You're no longer asking, why did they do this? Instead, you're asking, why did I stay, and how will I never go back? This is how you heal, not by getting answers from someone who doesn't tell the truth. Not by trying to fix what they never admitted was broken, but by choosing yourself every day, every hour, every moment you want to turn around and don't. That is the strength you build in silence. That is the growth you cultivate behind closed doors. Final words are sacred. They are not threats. They are not ultimatums. They are truth. They are the line you draw when you've been pushed too far, when you've learned enough, when you know now what you didn't know then. You don't walk away hoping they follow. You walk away knowing they won't and being at peace with that. So let your final words be spoken. Let them echo through your actions. Let them close the chapter with grace, with power, and with certainty. You are not leaving to punish. You are leaving to preserve, to protect, to rise. And once you do, never look back through the open door, because nothing waiting behind it can compare to the freedom that lives ahead. You don't need to fight a narcissist. You don't need to stoop, argue, or explain. You only need to remember your worth, speak your truth, and walk like you know you are the sanctuary, not the storm. They may never change, but the moment you do, they'll never dare disrespect you again.